The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we are webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. It's Thursday. We're very excited to be here today. There's a lot of big news breaking about autism around the world, and we're going to be talking about that and more today. We're going to be with you live for the next 2 hours, talking about autism from a 360-degree perspective. But before I get any further, I have to do a huge shout out to some friends of mine in Mrs. Hartshorn's classroom. This is an amazing group of young people that I've had the opportunity to work with recently. They are getting ready tonight to do their Women in History theater project, and I am so proud of them. They are the most amazing children on the face of the earth, and I get all emotional about it because they're doing such a good job. They're going to do their dress rehearsal this afternoon and their performance tonight. It's opening night and closing night, but I wanted to tell all of them good luck, break legs. I will see you a little bit later on, and thank you for all your hard work. Now, go back to your schoolwork. Okay. Of course, I referred to the fact that we have a lot of breaking news happening. If you were anywhere near a phone or a television or the internet yesterday, you probably heard the CDC has put out new numbers and changed their prevalence numbers to 1 in 50. Yes, that's right. 1 in 50 school children in the United States has an autism spectrum disorder. It's shocking, it's disturbing, and we're going to talk about it here on this show, not only what those numbers mean, but we're also going to talk about what we can do about it, because there are things that we can do. But I want to remind everyone that throughout this show, the entire show is meant to be interactive. We're interested in your opinions, your thoughts, your concerns, suggestions that you have for things that you'd like to see us cover here on the show. Emily is going to cycle through some of the different ways that you can get in touch with us here at the show. While she's doing that, I want to remind you that there's only one way to watch us live, and that's www.autism-live.com. When you go there, you see a desktop, and on that desktop, there's a little box. It says questions we're answering right now. When we're live, all you have to do is put your cursor there, type away, hit enter, and your question will show up here right on my desktop, and you and I can have a conversation in real time. You don't have to log in. There's no credit card that needs to be put down. It's totally free of charge and it's anonymous. If you do want to put personal information there so that we can get back in touch with you, you absolutely can. I have a way that I can edit that out before we show it to the rest of the audience. So please participate with us. Please let us know what you're thinking, where you're watching from, what kinds of things you're dealing with, and suggestions for things that you'd like to see covered on the show, because this entire show is meant to be for you. At the start of the show, I always like to remind everyone that I am not an expert in autism. I know, what am I doing here then, right? Well, I am a parent. I'm a parent of a fabulous young gentleman who was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2.5, and he is now a fabulous 4th grader and doing remarkably well. And I attribute that to his hard work, some hard work on my part. I will admit to that, and to the good graces and great knowledge of a whole lot of people who steered us in the right direction and made sure that we got the help and support that my child deserved. And I made a promise way back when that we were going to do everything that we could for my child, and then when we saw progress that we would turn around and help as many other people as we could. That's why I'm here. This is my pay it forward, pay it back, pay it forward. So please know that I take it really seriously. If you need some help, you are not alone. And by the way, I sit here where I get the pleasure of being able to sit here and talk to you, but there are a whole lot of other people behind the scenes who care so very deeply about you and about your child. This entire show, if you're a parent, teacher, practitioner, we really want to help you to be more efficient, more effective. And if you are an individual yourself who is on the autism spectrum, we're here to support you as well. All right. That's why we're here, so let's get started. Every morning we like to start with something we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. This is the time of day when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym, and we try to make sense of it. What does this mean in general? We give you the very specific actual term for it. Then we give you a working definition and try to relate it to what it means in our lives when we're dealing with autism. So our term today is a new one. We've never really defined it before on the show, although we certainly talk about it a lot. It is iconic communication systems. What on earth does this mean, and why do we need to know about it? Okay, let's look at our actual definition, which is a visual representation of a real world object is used to communicate wants and needs. And our working definition here is using pictures and symbols to create functional communication. With all of our kids, regardless of what age they are, and regardless of whether they're on the autism spectrum, we are trying to get to functional communication as quickly as we possibly can. When an individual has the ability to communicate their wants and their needs, they are much more likely to be able to learn, and they are much more likely to be free of challenging behavior. You know how they refer to the terrible twos? Terrible twos is that period of time in which a child realizes, I can't get things the way I used to. I used to cry and mom would pick me up. I used to cry and dad would jiggle me and pay attention to me. I used to cry and grandma would change my diaper. I used to cry and Aunt Beth would give me a cookie. It worked for me. But they go through this transition period where they start to acquire, hopefully, spoken language. They point, and in fact, all kinds of verbal language. They point, they grunt, they'll go, and eventually they'll perfect that into saying cookie, right? But the period of time in which they're making that transition is very frustrating for them. Just imagine, I used to do this and it worked, and now you're telling me I got to do something else and it involves some work on my part. I'm not comfortable, right? And we will see a child tantrum. Have you ever been in a situation where you wanted to make something clear to somebody and for whatever reason you couldn't? Maybe they didn't speak the same language you did. Maybe they were older or younger than you, but it's frustrating when you can't communicate, right? As parents of children on the autism spectrum, we are there sometimes on a daily basis, right? That need to communicate, what is my child thinking? Oh, so often when we ask autism parents if you could have anything, what would it be? And a lot of people will say, I want my child to speak, but a lot more people will say, I want to know what they're thinking. I really, really want to know what it's like inside their head. So we get that functional communication, whether it is spoken language or whether it's pointing to something, whether it's signing, we need to get that functional communication. Well, iconic communication systems, such as PECS, the Picture Exchange Communication System, these are ways that we can communicate. And when you see a lot of kids are really into iPads now. And what I love about iPads, as expensive as iPads are, they are nowhere near as expensive as the old augmentative devices were. And you can put a picture exchange system or another iconic communication system onto an iPad fairly inexpensively. Some of them are as low as $1.99. And it gives a child a library of pictures that you can show to the child, and you can bring it up and have a picture of an apple and a picture of a pear, and you turn the iPad to the child and say, what do you want to have to eat? And the child can touch the apple, touch the pear, and it says apple or pear. That's functional communication. Is it the communication that we all want down the road ultimately? Maybe not, right? I think most of us are hoping and working and praying to get our children to spoken language. And in the vast majority of our kids, we can get there. But unfortunately, there is still a percentage of kids on the spectrum who don't get to vocal speech. And it is so important for all of our kids, whether they're going to get to vocal speech or not, to give them the gift of functional communication. And iconic communication is a powerful way in which to do this. Unfortunately, so many parents feel when therapists will introduce and say, we want to do this iconic communication system, whether it's on little cards or it's on a tablet device, and parents will feel a sinking. I know when it was first brought up to me, I was like, oh no, are we giving up on speech? Is that what's happening here? It's really, it seems like a dark, dark day. But the truth is, it's not. What we know from research is if a child is really struggling to get language and we give them functional communication, it makes it that much easier down the road for them to get speech and get it in a powerful way. But if we wait and we say, well, I don't want to introduce the iconic communication system because I really want to work towards speech, what we do is we frustrate the children. They need to be able to communicate their wants and their needs as early as possible. Once we get that happening, we will see challenging behavior tantrums. They go down exponentially. Because if the child can communicate, think how much energy it takes to throw a tantrum, right? If they can communicate and get their needs met in a really easy way, pointing to a screen or pointing to a picture or pointing to a representation of something, they'll do that rather than gear up all the energy. Even little kids, they seem like they have endless energy, but even little kids, if they could say, and point to a cookie and get a cookie rather than throw themselves on the floor and maybe get a cookie, they're going to point and go, right? So we really have to be open-minded about iconic communication systems. It is a stepping stone to get to language, and it's a powerful one. I guarantee you that if you're struggling with challenging behavior at home and you don't have functional communication and you start to add in an iconic communication system, you will see a difference in the way your life works. You will see a difference in how you can enjoy your child, the level of enjoyment of it. So a really, really powerful tool. By the way, you can download these on your phone. It's that easy. Some of them you can customize where you take a picture and you say the word. You can put in text underneath so that you're working on text and expressive language, because every time the child touches, if you're doing it on a tablet or on a phone device, they touch the apple and it says apple, right? So you're working on expressive language. It's a very powerful tool. So shop around, try things out. If you're trying an app, try them for free first before you buy, because the more expensive end of them, there are some that are like in the $200 range, $200 to $300 range. But again, you can get some for free. We've featured AirTalk before here on the show. Lovely, lovely app. And I believe it's either 99 cents or free right now. So shop around for that. But if you're having difficulties, consider iconic communication systems. Very, very powerful. Okay, we always like to start the morning with a question too that we like to ask you. And we did talk about apps the other day, and if you're interested in knowing more apps for autism, that's featured on our Facebook page. You guys wrote in some great, great apps. I'm still going through the list and trying them out. They're really cool, though. Today we want to know, how has technology changed your child's treatment plan? Now, it may be that it hasn't yet, but I ask these kinds of questions because I think it's really interesting for us all to compare notes. We're going to be talking a lot today about the power of when we as a group communicate with each other. And when I say we as a group, I'm talking about the whole autism community, whether it's parents talking to other parents, or teenagers and adults who are on the spectrum talking to them, to other teenagers and adults on the autism spectrum, or parents talking to the teenagers and the adults on the autism spectrum, because we all have things to learn from each other, right? And when we get together as a group, we are powerful, very powerful. And we're going to tap into that a little bit later on. But what better way for us to use that power than to tell each other things that we're doing that are working? So if you're a parent who has given your child an iPad or a tablet and seen a change, write about it on Facebook. Tell other people, because they need to hear it. They really need to hear it. I know people get frustrated because it becomes another thing. How am I going to spend money to get an iPad? But we feature on the show regularly ways in which you can access grant funds for things like iPads. And I hope that you will tune into those, check some of the videos that we've done previously on our YouTube page about funding and technology. We have people from Act Today who are on the show frequently talking about when they have a grant phase and they give lots of iPads away. And we also had Tammy Ihorn from iTalk on recently, and you really need to check out their site, itaalk.org. Go there and check out their Tuesday's Treasures, because not only does iTalk give grants for iPads, but they list every week other places that give out grants for iPads and other technology. So don't let it be that you can't afford it, right? And also tell us what is working for you technology-wise so that we can learn. We can learn and share. All right, we always have a topic of the week, and our topic, if you couldn't have already guessed, since you see how the language is slanted, technology and autism. Putting these two things together to figure out how can we use technology to further what we're trying to do in the field of autism. It's a very exciting time in this respect. The things that we can do and the things that our kids can achieve when they have access to technology. I know I shared yesterday that I guess it was Tuesday, I shared one of my favorite apps that my son is using is Splash Math. And it's very exciting to me because when we had Temple Grandin, twice now I've had the opportunity to interview her for the show, and she both times asked me about my son and what he's good at, and he's very good at math. It's not his favorite thing to write, though. And being able to do math on a pad, on a tablet, lets him run when he would be forced to have to, and we're still working on the writing, but that's a frustration. He doesn't get to learn as much, do as much with math, but when he can do it on the iPad, I'm astounded with what he's capable of doing. And it really feels like, to me, giving him superpowered legs so that he can run ahead. And I take the part that he's having to work on out of the equation, because technology does that. And there's so many other things too, but that's one way that I'm particularly really excited about technology. So all of this and more today, some of the different things that we're going to be talking about today. Of course, we have the big news from the CDC that we're going to be talking about in just a minute. A little bit later on, we're going to be joined by Dr. Jonathan Tarbox. I know it's Thursday. We normally have him on Friday, but there's a reason for that. We'll talk about that more a little bit later. And we're also going to feature the myth of the day, a bunch of questions that came in from all of you that we're excited to talk about. And we will be watching to see what kinds of questions you bring throughout the show. So now's a good time. Ask away. We'll be back in just a few minutes after these messages. Stick with us. Currently in the United States, 1 in 88 children is affected by autism. 1 in 88 means something different when your child is the one. Recovery is possible. Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, host of Autism Live, an online show about autism broadcast by CARD, the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. I'm also the mother of a child with autism, my beautiful son, Jem. You know our old joke, guess what?
Chicken butt.
Chicken butt. So we're going to take the chickens. But things weren't always so easy. I remember when Jem was first diagnosed with autism. I used to lay awake at night in bed and pray for someone or something that could help us to get our child back. My prayers were answered by Dr. Doreen Granpichet and the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. CARD treats autism and other related disorders using the principles of ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis, which is the only scientifically proven effective treatment for autism. It is also recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics and the U.S. Surgeon General. About a year after we started treatment with CARD, we were able to see tremendous improvement, and we got our child back.
What grade are you in?
Second.
You are a smart cookie, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Do you like school?
Yeah.
Do you have any good friends?
Yeah, Oscar.
Oscar is your best friend?
Yeah.
And my child is just one of thousands to benefit from CARD ABA therapy. Across the nation and around the world, children are making amazing progress and being given the keys to unlock their full potential.
We are extremely grateful for the amazing job CARD has done in helping our daughter. Our daughter today, just in 4 months, I think is a totally different child than when she started with CARD. I kind of see it as, it seems like her brain in a way was asleep, and now that we've gotten so many services, we've seen her wake up.
Did you have some guesses?
Recovery is possible if you take the right steps, if you're willing to put in all the hard work. And 7.5 years, yeah, it's a lot of work. It's worth every little bit, and CARD's been there with us every step of the way.
I have 2 children with autism. I can't imagine a day without CARD or the therapists. They've been so instrumental in helping us with our kids and shaping their lives and helping us help them.
Thank you, Christy and Big Alex.
Thank you, Jackie and Mariana.
We've tried other things before ABA, but the most beneficial thing has been ABA services, and I'd be the first person to tell any newly diagnosed family that you have to contact an ABA provider, and if you're lucky enough to have CARD, you're very blessed.
Recovery from autism is absolutely a possibility. We've been recovering children for over 20 years. It's just a matter of identifying the child's medical needs, understanding the child's sensory issues, and then teaching the child all of the skills they need in order to function normally.
We know there's hope for autism. Autism is treatable, and recovery from autism is possible.
As many of you know, yesterday, the CDC released new numbers saying that in the United States, 1 in 50 children, school-aged children, have an autism spectrum disorder. 1 in 50. Just a few years ago, it was 110. Then last year we went to 1 in 88, and now it's 1 in 50. And I don't know about you, but my stomach just dropped when I heard that. And I felt a growing sense of concern, and not only for our community and what's happening in our world, but what do we have to do to be heard? What on earth do we have to do before someone is going to really take action? And in times of great stress, I find myself thinking, what would Dr. Seuss do? I know, it seems a little strange, but the truth is that Dr. Seuss has given us the roadmap to all things. This is a guy who said, those who matter don't care, and those who care don't matter, right? So I got to thinking about this and thinking, okay, what exactly would Dr. Seuss do? And I was looking through some of our Dr. Seuss books that we have at home, and I saw the words, it's not about what is, it's about what can become. Also a Dr. Seuss quote. And I got excited because I thought, all right, if it's not about what is, what can it become? Is there a way that we can take 1 in 50 and make sure that everyone hears us? If someone isn't panicked about that, they really need to be. And I know we've all been trying for a really long time to be heard on this subject. But if we were to all take a page out of Horton Hears a Who and remember that when the Who's spoke, they could not be heard because they didn't all speak at the same time. And perhaps it's time for all of us to be the Who's in Whoville and to put our voices together in one clear voice. We all know that our children that have already been diagnosed deserve and need therapy. We know that autism can be treated and that we must give them access to therapy. That's something that has to be heard. But likewise, we also need to figure out what is going on in our world, in our environment that is clearly triggering the rise, the exponential rise, an epidemic of autism. We need these two things to happen, and the only way we can really see the progress, the only thing that we've seen in history that has done this, is if there is a national commission that is appointed, one person appointed, to make sure that they put all of the information together and get the help to our kids who have it, and get help for upcoming parents, people who are about to have children, to understand what their risk level is and how to diminish it, and what we can all do to turn this number around. What are we waiting for? For it to be 1 in 10? We can't wait anymore. And so I'm asking all of you to put your voices together. And if you know someone who has any role in politics at all, anybody who has a voice, that you make eye contact and that you say to them, 1 in 50, what are we waiting for? And the great Dr. Seuss quote, and you look them right in the eye to hold them accountable and say, unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not. The great words of Dr. Seuss, but together we can turn this around. Make the statement, make it as often as you have to, be one voice. Let's think about, what would Dr. Seuss do? 1 in 50, it can't get any lower. All right, we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back, and we're going to share more exciting news, the myth of the day. Stick with us.
Hi everyone, welcome back. For the month of March, we're going to be making a rain stick. And what's really cool about this project is that the steps are pretty simple, so your kids are going to be able to practice a lot of their fine motor skills when making it. Another bonus is that once the rain stick is completed, you guys can use it for a bunch of different programs under cognition and executive functions. Things that deals with, seeing versus hearing, or using it also for auditory memory. But we'll get to that later. First, we gotta make the rain stick. So the materials you'll be needing are a paper towel roll, tape, paper, aluminum foil, rice, and any kind of materials you want to use to decorate your rain stick with. All right, let's get to it. So the first thing you wanna do is get a piece of tin foil that's about double the length as your paper towel roll. So I got this, and now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna roll it up, like so, and I'm gonna wrap my paper towel roll with it. Okay, and don't worry if it's too messy, okay? This is just to give us a basic shape. Now once I've got this, I'm gonna make it a little bit tighter, and I'm gonna roll it and stick it inside of my paper towel roll. I want to make sure that it goes all the way through the paper towel roll, and what this does, it acts like a buffer so the rice will go down slowly through the tube. And see how that's in nice and in there? Okay, now that I have that, I'm going to take a piece of paper and cover one side, and I'm going to take a piece of tape and secure it over the bottom. All right, now that I've got this on, I'm gonna take my rice and pour it in. All right, now that I got the rice in there, I'm gonna seal the other side. Now that this is constructed, don't forget to use your imagination to decorate this any way that you want. And here's my finished rain stick. Don't forget you can decorate yours however you see fit. I decided to use tape and pipe cleaners, but you could always paint it, add sparkles, just whatever you feel like doing. Now that this is done, let's take a listen to it. What does that sound like to you? I think it sounds like rain too. What does rain look like? Ah, that is what rain looks like. You can ask them a whole bunch of different questions using this after it's already been made. Well, until next time, craft on. Bye guys.
Can you see me? Can you see me flying by your side?
Welcome back to Autism Live. We frequently like to showcase the myth of the day, and because there's so many myths that surround autism, and as we get ready for IEP season, and we're really already in IEP season. I know many of you have written in and said that you've already gotten your invitation, or you've already had your meeting. Some of you already had mediation. We want to look at IEPs in lots of different ways and make suggestions. And the myth that I want to dispel today is that parents are stuck with whatever is written by the IEP team. We know that in the course of an IEP, they hand us that lovely document that and they'll say, now, are you familiar with what your rights are, right? And they always take the time to kill some more trees and hand us this very thick document and say, you need to sign that you were advised of your rights, as if you were going to sit there and say, hold on a second, I'm just going to read through it at the meeting, right? And the rights change from time to time. So looking at last year's may help you, may not, right? Depending upon the year. But you do have the right to ask for your rights in advance. But until you get the piece of paper with your rights, you may not know that. So want to make sure that you do know that. You do have the right to know your rights. And included in your rights is that you are a part of the team. And this is always said at the beginning of a meeting. This is the team. The team has gotten together and they make everybody say their name. And of course, the parents are included in the team and it's all happy, happy, happy. And as we've said before on the show, then they will do the lovely portion of the IEP where they tell you all the wonderful things about your child, how your child is just the most unique, most fabulous, fun, good-natured, wonderful things. And then somebody will take a deep breath and then they'll tell you all the things that your child is behind in. It's like the best of times, worst of times, right? They'll all go around the table and they'll say their recommendations that they've already had a chance to type and put together. And then it gets to a point in the meeting where they'll say, okay, do you have anything that you would like to say as the parent? And you've been there an hour, hour and 15 minutes, hour and a half by this point, and you know that the meeting is only scheduled for 4 minutes after you were asked if you had anything to say, right? And then you might say, well, I really feel that my child needs X, Y, or Z. And they go, great, so great. Okay, so here's what our offer of FAPE is. And they'll slide it across the table. And it will include all the things that they said. And of course, none of the things that you have said, or at least certainly not all of them, unless you're exactly on the same page, because they've had no time to add what you wanted into this plan. And when they slide it across the table, they'll say, okay, here's what our offer is, and please sign here. As we've talked about time and time again on the show, we never want to sign that piece of paper at that meeting, ever, for any reason. There is no need to sign it. We have the legal right to wait and have even legal counsel consult with us about it, but we don't need to sign it there. There's no good earthly reason to sign it there. You should at least take it home and read through it, because throughout the meeting, as everyone was talking, they were taking notes and putting it in the note section. And a lot of times what got said and what got typed don't equal the same thing. And because it is a legal document, you need to read through all of that. And a lot of times they'll like to read through it for you. Don't let them do that. Say, I'd really much rather take that home and read through it. I've heard so many people who have signed it because they said, well, you know, they read it to me and I agreed with everything and I liked the services and I didn't want to lose the services. They can't take the services that they just wrote away from you if you go home to read it overnight. It's not like they're going to say, oh, you know, you didn't make the deal, so we're taking it away. Don't let them bully you, right? It really is one of those times when you have to say, this is what my plan is, this is what I'm going to stick to, and I'm not going to do anything else. A lot like when you go to a timeshare meeting and somebody's trying to sell you a timeshare and you had an arrangement with your significant other, this is what we're going to do, this is what we're not going to do. The checkbook is not coming out no matter what happens, right? Same thing. You're not going to sign this document today. You can sign it the next morning. That's perfectly fine. But take the time to go home, read it over. And know that you can say, I want to add something here. I want to add goals. I want to lose this goal, add this goal. I'm requesting X, Y, and Z. You're entitled to do that. It does mean that the IEP team will have to meet probably again, but you know what? Lots of people have to do that. And if that's what it takes to get your child services for an entire year that actually meet their educational goals, oh, what a worthwhile expenditure of time, right? So do know that you don't have to agree with what the team said. There's even a place on the IEP where you can sign and say, I agree to this part, but not this part. And so if you take the document home, I always say take the document home, at least overnight. And if you take the document home and you say, well, I agree to this, this, and this, but this is still a point of contention, there's a place where you can write down, I agree to, and they leave a box that's about this, a line that's about that small. But you can attach things to it, say, this is what I agree to, this is what I don't agree to. Be very specific, because again, once you sign it and they sign it, legally binding. And there are ways to undo an IEP, but it's so much easier to get it right before you sign it than to undo it later on. And again, a huge myth that parents sit there and from the way things progress and the way people act, you would think, I really don't get a say. But don't be steamrolled by that. That is not the truth. You do get a say. And of course, I've talked before on the show about how you can use skills to help you to have a say that is really very informed and very appropriate and effective. And if you don't remember the things we talked about that, you can search them on YouTube, and we do talk about skills from time to time and what a great tool it is for so many different things. But in particular, I've been using it for the IEP this whole year. It's just a fabulous, fabulous thing. Very exciting. But don't be steamrolled. You do have rights as a parent. That's our myth for the day. We're going to take a break and come back and look at your answers to the question of the day and a couple of questions that you guys have written in. So stick with us.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Hi, welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Lisa Ackerman. I've got Kristen Selby-Gonzalez here with me today, and the feedback overwhelmingly. Oh, chicken nuggets! It's probably one of the easiest recipes on the planet.
We know all of our kids love chicken nuggets.
Let's talk about corn. GMOs, genetically modified foods, are no bueno for a lot of folks, and we agree. So I've actually called the manufacturers to make sure these are GMO-free product. Really simply, what I did with the corn flakes is just the old-fashioned crush away. That's just the easiest way. Maybe you can crush that a little bit for me.
Something our kids come up with too, if we're doing cooking with them.
Well, and fine motor improvement.
Absolutely.
Boom. Sensory issues. Boom. A lot of people will over-season. They season for adults. So from the standpoint of just putting it in enough flavor. Now that we got our base, our coating in, I'm going to work on how we coat the chicken. Now, Kristen, was Jax ever allergic to eggs?
He has been.
There's a lot of options with eggs. Don't you know that you can also look at duck eggs,
really?
Quail eggs, and other types of eggs that even though they look the same in the bowl, they're different on the allergy panel. Let's say you find out you're allergic to every egg on the planet. You can use a little bit of water and arrowroot starch. I've got a high-grade stainless steel, non-Teflon frying pan. I'm using high heat oil, getting all ready to go. So we're just really easily going in and coating the chicken.
Now, when I'm flipping these, Lisa, do I flip over and over, or do I just cook one side and then the other?
You know, I prefer to cook one side, because what happens is the good coating that you spent all this time crushing for me falls off.
Gotcha.
Bonus.
About how long do you cook on each side?
About 4 minutes on each side. We'll do it. And I think you're almost there. Yeah, you're good. You're golden. Good. Fantastic. So if you want to take them out. So now that we got the last batch in, let me take you through what these finished babies look like. Like I said, you're going to have some happy families out there wanting to eat this. This is so easy. You saw how quickly we got in and done. Just want to remind everyone, we really want feedback at Autism Live and want to know what you want to see next. So if you've got an idea, a recipe you want us to convert or to talk about a particular topic, we'd love to hear from you. You could do that at autismlive@gmail.com or Facebook land. We're all on Facebook. facebook.com/autismlive. And then again, there's already thousands of recipes waiting for your eyeballs to go cruise over on the TACA website. We'll look forward to seeing you next time on Autism Live. Thanks for joining us.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Welcome back. We like to regularly feature products here on the show, and we've been talking about autism and technology, and I think one of the best ways to make a leap into technology for kids on the autism spectrum is starting with Legos. There's a method to my madness here. So when your child is very small, we all want, whether a child's on the spectrum or not, we all want to be working on hand skills and to be working on some sort of building blocks. And they make Duplos for little kids using Legos that are really easy to handle. You can give a Duplo to a child who's even 1, and they can at least start to stack them together. They'll start to push them together, and we always want to be working on those pulling, pushing, turning kinds of skills. The Duplos are really effective for that. They are very colorful, they're safe, they're non-toxic, they're easy to wash, absolutely fabulous. And you can do all kinds of fun games with them, whether it's building up a high tower and knocking them down, putting colors together, creating a boat, creating a house, creating a castle, right? It really allows the child to begin to think imaginatively. And when we talk about play, we talk about functional pretend play, we talk about symbolic play, we talk about imaginative play. Legos and Duplos are going to be great to stretch all of those different skills. So really effective. And then as the child gets a little bit older, you can graduate into the more traditional Legos, the bricks. And it's a fascinating time. And if you think that it's just for boys, oh, you need to check out the newer Legos, because they have a whole line of Legos that are very girl friendly. It's the Friends line. And they have girl characters, and it's like Barbie, but Legos. It's just a fascinating thing. And they're in great colors. They're in pastels. So really fascinating. But I have to be honest, a lot of young girls like the traditional brick sets. So, you know, you can kind of play it by ear, but at least you have choices now, right? And when they get the older Legos, the traditional Legos, the bricks, then really the sky's the limit. They make so many different pieces, and they come in different kits that are specialized for different age ranges and different. They get together with other companies. Like there are Harry Potter Legos, and there are SpongeBob Legos, and there are Star Wars Legos, right? So you can really get into the area of interest that the child has. They have space Legos. They have minor Legos, right? And the minifigures in particular, very big deal in my house, because you can collect the minifigures. And they have different professions so that you can be talking about the people in the community. All these things are great. And so you think to yourself, okay, well, what does this have to do with technology, Shannon? Well, then the next step up, once you have a child starting to build things, when they get a little bit older, there are different apps that you can build things with Legos. And there is even a program that you can download for free on the computer where your child can build something virtually with Legos, and it will automatically spec it out for you. You just push a little button, it specs it out for you, and it will tell you how many pieces of which colors, and if you'd like to, you can push another button and it will tell you what it would cost to have that kit put together, and they'll put it together for you and ship it to your house. It's a very exciting thing for a young person to sit and make something. First of all, they're learning how to do 3D planning on this technology. It's a little bit too advanced for me, can I say, but my son has been able to do it since he was 7. They can turn it, they can flip it upside down, so they can look at it really from a 360-degree perspective. It's like in a virtual room, but they can put it all together, really use their imagination. It's totally free to be able to do it, and once they've done it, if you want to get them a great gift, depending on how extravagant they've been with the bricks that they chose, you can spec it out. You can look at it first and say, okay, so that's going to cost $24 to do, but how exciting to be able to order that and then have the child be able to put it together. So you've got the picture that you can print out the picture of what they designed and have them actually put it together. This is construction. This is being an engineer. These are great, great skills for our kids to work on. And by the way, they were talking recently with my son about fine motor and building up his fine motor. And the smaller the Legos, the more you're working on the fine motor. And it does require a little bit of pushing down. It does require finger skills, picking them up, that pincer grasp. So amazing things that you can do with Legos, whether it's sorting, right? You could just put a pile of Legos in front of a child and start working on colors, or those fine motor skills, or huge planning skills, executive function skills that you put together with technology. Very exciting. We love the Lego people. And by the way, they have a whole line of Legos to be used in the classroom that they have lessons to go along with them. So check Lego out. Give it another look because they're really fabulous. All right, we're going to take a break, and we are going to come back to hopefully look at your answers to the question of the day. Stick with us.
Skills is an online program that provides assessment, curriculum, positive behavior support planning for challenging behavior, and progress tracking, and it does this all in one place. The skills assessment and curriculum addresses 8 areas of development, which even includes advanced higher level areas such as executive functions and cognition, which pretty much makes skills the only ABA-based set of curricula for teaching more complex skills, things like problem solving, planning, self-management, perspective taking, and even inferring and predicting others' private events. Skills is a 4-step system. Step 1 is to add the child to your account. Step 2 is to start assessment. The skills assessment is the only ABA-based assessment with psychometric research demonstrating the language subscale to have excellent reliability. Every area of human functioning and typical child development from infancy to adolescence was researched, making the skills assessment the most comprehensive of its kind in the world, and we're quite proud of that.
Skills is easy to use. Simply click Start Assessment and begin answering questions. Or simply type in a keyword, find specific activities to assess, and add activities to treatment. Step 3. Choose activities. Once you've completed the assessment, Skills selects from a pool of 4,000 activities categorized by age, level, and skill type to provide you with exactly those activities each child needs. Start by choosing a curriculum, then a lesson, and finally an activity. Click the information icon to view prerequisites, ages in which targets develop, examples, and IEP goals. Click the video icon to watch a short video. Once you've identified an activity you want to teach, adding activities to treatment is a snap. Step 4. Start treatment. Here you can access customizable activity lesson details, add your own customized targets and exemplars, and edit an activity status such as introducing or mastering it. You can even print handouts such as worksheets, tracking forms, visual aids, and other materials. Skills also offers multiple progress charts mapping curriculum progress, lesson progress, and cumulative number of activities and targets mastered over time. The Skills language curriculum is categorized by verbal behavior type so that users can identify progress for verbal operants, such as echoics, mans, tax, and interverbals.
Skills is one of the only programs that provides the ability to write behavior intervention plans, or BIPs, for challenging behavior.
With just a few clicks, the outline of the behavior intervention plan is written for you and ready to be printed and implemented.
You can learn more about Skills today and get started by visiting us at www.skillsforautism.com, or you can call us at 877-975-4559. Skills. Progress starts here.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're looking at your answers to the question of the day. I had them. I don't know where they went. Here they are. I also have a couple of questions that you guys have written in that I'm going to address first because my Facebook is just giving me fits and starts. Okay, so somebody wrote in on our email feature and said, "Hi, I recently watched the phone interview with Temple Granning. Amazing and so insightful. I am currently a special education teacher, and I have worked in ABA classes on Long Island, New York, where I live and volunteer at horse stables working with people on the spectrum alongside horses. Mind-blowing. I work with all disabilities. I have a master's plus 30, but do not feel like I'm doing all I can with my schooling at this point. I'm looking at going back to school to get my certification in ABA. What's your opinion? And what can I do with this degree outside of teaching? I want to do more. Thank you for all of your knowledge. And thank you for writing in. This is a great question. And I first of all, thank you, because anybody who is working in special education in the public school system, we have to thank, right? Because especially somebody who's this interested and concerned and wanting to do more. If we could just clone you, if we could just make 1 million of you, how much better would the world be, right? And I love the fact that you're working with horses, with people with all different disabilities, and that you're excited by that. I just think that's wonderful. And striving for more information. When we talk about getting a certification in ABA, there are lots of different things. Right now, there are some schools that are offering a certification in autism. And then there are schools that offer a degree program, a psychology program where a focus is the ABA. I think what's key at this point in time, from what I'm hearing from everyone, is that wherever you're going for your program, make sure that they have a BCBA track. That a lot of schools already will have this, but ask. So if you're going and whatever degree that you're getting, because there are now degrees in autism, how interesting is that? Whatever the degree is, that you were on a BCBA track, so that in the 3rd or 4th year that you're getting ready to take the BCBA test, and that you're doing hours towards your BCBA. A BCBA is a board certified behavior analyst. And once you get your BCBA, and that does require a certain amount of schoolwork. You do have to have your master's degree, and you then need to take some coursework to be able to sit for your boards. And there is a crazy hour requirement on it that you have to be mentored during those hours. So if you're already working with children or adults on the autism spectrum, and you want to be able to count those hours, make sure that you have gotten aligned with a mentor. There are even people who mentor here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. Sometimes the college will recommend people, but important that you have mentorship so that those hours are counting. It's a lot of hours, and you're probably already doing them. Make sure that they count. Okay, so once you have your BCBA, what can you do with it? Well, really, the sky's the limit. There are so many people who have varied jobs to be a BCBA. Every school in the United States is supposed to and should have a BCBA. Sometimes there'll only be one BCBA to service a school district that has 20,000 children in it. And, their time is spent running from school to make sure that they can be of use. There is no end to jobs with a BCBA. It absolutely is something that will help you to get administrative jobs in schools. It will, more and more teachers are getting their BCBAs, but there are other options as well. Being a supervisor for helping children that are getting therapy, ABA therapy in the home. When insurance companies now, with insurance reform, most insurance companies require that a BCBA be assigned to the case and be making the decisions on how to design the program. And so otherwise they will not pay. They've been able to say that we have no problem paying the insurance claim on this, but there has to be somebody who has a level of expertise that we can point to and see that they know what they're doing. And so their definition of that across the board has been, well, if somebody's board certified, we're going to count that. It's exhaustive what they have to go through, so we're going to count that as expertise. So we will fund insurance payments if there is a board certified behavior analyst working. I can tell you that right now there is a shortage. There are people who have insurance but can't get a BCBA because there is no one in their area. So this is a wide open field with huge career opportunities, but also frequently, companies and organizations will hire a BCBA to come in and work not on autism, but to work on the structure of the company. There are so many different applications, excuse me, for ABA. It certainly isn't just autism, but autism is a big field, and unfortunately, as we heard again today, growing. So job security. with a BCBA, and I think you'll also gain a level of expertise that comes with a BCBA that will be really worthwhile. So if there's more that you're wanting to do, I would certainly point you in that direction. And if you want more information about how do you become a BCBA, you can go to bacb.com. bacb.org. Go there, and every single person who is a BCBA is listed on that site. If you're a parent and wanting to find a BCBA in your area, you can go there. You'll click on the button that says looking for a provider, I think is the term that they use, or looking for a licensed person. So you click that. If you are, there are all kinds of buttons there that you can click if you're interested in getting your BCBA and what that entails. I'm excited for you on this adventure, and I'm excited for all of us that such a wonderful, caring person is wanting more information. Okay, we had another question that came in that I'm hoping we're going to have Dr. Tarbox here in a little while, and I'm going to have him help with this question, but I do want to bring it up though. Let me find it. Somebody wrote in and said, I saw the video talking about connection and Megan Hines and would love to know about how to contact her about participating, collaborating. So we're going to check with Dr. Tarbox about that, but I can tell you that if you go to autismresearchgroup.org, that they have a tab there for connection under resources. So go to resources and click there, and they tell you about what a wonderful program that Megan Hines has started for siblings to be connected for connection. We need more of these kinds of programs, and Megan is a very forward-thinking young woman. But we'll see if we can't get you, and because you emailed me, I have a way to email you back, which is always great. If we can't get you a specific connection with her to deal with that. I'm going to look and see if I'm able to go to our Facebook. If not, we're going to take a break and come back. But let's take a look. It looks like I can get on here. Okay, so we asked you the other day, maybe not, maybe not. Facebook doesn't like me this week. Have you noticed that? The internet has gone out of the entire building. How lovely. All right, so I'm not going to be able to look at Facebook for you right now. We'll do it a little bit later on. We're going to take a break. And in fact, this is a great time for us to go to the A Word. This is an amazing documentary being made here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. They're following a little boy, Jack Riley, who was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2. Like so many children out there, his parents were concerned, and they were incredibly fortunate, though, because they live close to the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. They did all the things that they needed to do to make sure that they got their funding in order, and they were able to start early intensive behavioral intervention in their home. And what the A Word does is allow us a window into their house to see moments in time that happen so that we can see the arc of progress that will happen with ABA. All of our kids are different. No two are the same, but it is amazing. As a parent who has already lived through this, having this intervention come into my home with my specific child, this series is amazing to me because you get to see how they put things together for the children, how they teach a small skill here and they teach a small skill here and a small skill here, and then how they put those skills together so that you arrive at a child who is thinking and noticing those around him and himself and communicating. It's a very exciting time. Now, does that mean that it's always about progress? Well, yes and no. There's always progress, but we see with our kids on the autism spectrum that sometimes you take 2 steps forward and then you take 3 steps back for a period of time. But it's not time to throw in the towel. It's time to figure out what the variables are and change something. And this particular episode today is about exactly that. We see that Jack Riley's made tremendous progress, but he's at a moment in time when his communication has not, his functional communication has not really caught up with where he actually is. Now, this is a difficult problem when you're experiencing it because the child will tantrum and they will find new behaviors. And Jack Riley has. He is biting to get what he wants. The good news is that's fixable. And the other good news is he's thinking it through. He knows what he wants, and he's thinking this is going to be the way to get it. As soon as we teach him a different way to get what he wants, that biting is going to go away. So take a look to see what they do with Jack Riley this week. This is the A word.
Put your shirt on.
Oh, really? Whoa, whoa.
Oh, really? Oh, really?
Oh, really?
Oh.
So
I got an email from Miriam saying...
Jessica received an email from the other therapist that Jack Riley has been attempting to bite them. So she's checking in with Mike and Cheryl to see what's going on.
Has he tried to bite you guys?
He got her. He got her.
On Tuesday morning. He bit me good. Was it just out of... Oh, it was aggression.
Was there a consequence?
I snapped at him and he cried. Kind of unexpected too.
Yeah.
And he doesn't bite out of aggression. Yeah. He never did that before.
It's this sort of this week. New.
Yeah, the girls have been telling me like just about every session he's.
Yeah, Miriam, he tried to bite her hand because he didn't want to walk.
Yeah, and so we took him out again yesterday, and it didn't start out well, but I think it ended up okay. Which his reward was if he would walk to the count of 20, he could jump with mommy and daddy. We would have him jump. And that seemed to be enough of a reward for him to try to keep going without going limp or trying to bite.
5 jumps and then take 20 steps.
So would it be okay if we went for a walk about like 9:30?
No.
Okay, 9:45.
I'm just kidding.
Hey, what's your name?
Jack Riley.
And how old are you?
2.
When's your birthday? Oh, cool. That's soon. Are you worried about the biting?
A little bit. Because I know a lot of our kids do it to get a reaction or to do it just, out of protest that they don't want to do something. I just don't want it to become an issue and become a behavior where he'll generalize it to everybody else, his family, therapists. So far it doesn't sound like it's been happening a lot. I just wanted to do it today just to see what the antecedent is and why he's doing it. Is it because he wants an extra minute of play, or he doesn't want to, transition from outside inside yet? Just to see what's actually going on.
No,
Stop. Stay with mommy though. Nope. Hold my hand. Stay with mommy first.
Hold my hand.
No, settle, dude.
You want to go to count to 20? Should we count to 20? And then you get Little Mermaid, or do you want to play? Okay, count to 20. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 19, 20! Yay! Come back. Come here. We'll walk. Yay! Let's walk. Stand up. Oops. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3.
What do you want?
No.
Hello, tantrum.
Stand up.
What do you want? Tell me. I want. Okay, then let's walk for 20 steps and then you can get mermaid. Okay, let's go.
Usually I just let him go free because he's been in therapy all day. Right. So that's part of he expects to be able to just run.
I would suggest just to get his compliance under control first. You give him an instruction, he complies, you give him his little freedom. Because I know he wants to run around. Give him words to use, like, give me 1 more minute, or, I want more grass.
Yeah. Jack.
What's calling you?
Come here.
Come here. Okay. Yay! There you go.
Good job, buddy.
Now what do you want? You want pancakes?
Mermaid.
Mermaid.
Hey, Jack, here's the mermaid.
She's gonna tickle you. She's
I don't want him to feel that every time he's out there, he has to have a fight with you guys.
And quite frankly, I had no idea how to combat it the last couple of days. I thought, okay, I'll just pick him up and take him in because I had no idea what to do. And today he had a good time. I think he got out some energy.
Well, if you guys can establish or be consistent about the rules outside, like, when I ask you to come here, you gotta come here.
You know, I mean, if he's just not behaving, if he's not doing anything we ask, is it okay to pick him up and say, okay, we're going in? I don't know what to do. I mean, I get so frustrated. I think, well, the only option I have is, we're going in, and he won't go in with me, so I pick him up. I can't do when he's 10, of course. Now it's like his main weapon is to just lay down.
My suggestion would be ask him to come here, but just, give him hugs or say what's up and then have him run again. So that when you finally do give him the instruction, he's not, too upset about it.
Yeah. Because
sometimes when you ask him to come here, he'll put up a fight because he knows that means I gotta go now.
So if every now and then he comes here and just
gives you a hug, gives you a kiss,
gets to be free, then it won't be such a bad association.
Yes.
It was a nice experience. The last couple times have been seriously to where I didn't even want to take him outside again. Just so traumatic.
You want the Little Mermaid?
Little Mermaids?
You should go. Oh, here, y'all.
Little Mermaids.
Hello, come sit down.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, go show Suzanne Little Mermaid.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Yeah, you are wearing a shirt. I'll go right back. You'll be right back.
I'll be right back.
Oh, yeah, that's too fun.
Welcome back. That was the A word. And I can't say enough about how much I enjoy watching the show and how I admire this family for, first of all, anytime that somebody says they're going to do ABA and they're going to allow for all the things that happen, the fact that you have strangers in your home, that you're opening up your parenting and saying, I want to learn new ways to parent because I want it to be better. I just have the greatest respect. I remember how hard it was on a daily basis. And I used to say that it was like somebody picked up my house, shook it, and said, okay, now makes sense. It's really difficult. And just when you think, okay, I'm going to go and do this, whether it's I'm going to clean the bathroom or, I'm going to do a load of laundry or I'm going to make a phone call, you have a group of strangers, virtual strangers in your home trying to work with your child. And it's a huge blessing. It's a huge blessing, but it's a strange thing to get used to, right? And to say that you're going to do that and you're going to rearrange your life so that you can and that you can be there and see what's happening and learn these techniques, it's a huge thing. It's a huge, huge deal. But then on top of that, to say, and I'm going to let cameras come in and take pictures of it as we struggle to learn something that we're not already good at, while the most important thing in the world weighs in the balance, our child, is really brave. It's just incredibly brave. So I have nothing but respect for this couple and the fact that they allow us into their world to see for the greater good. Huge, huge respect. By the way, they're going to be on the show a week from tomorrow. Both Mike and Cheryl will be here. We're very excited about it. It's the first time that they're going to be on the show, and I can't wait to talk to them and congratulate them on the fact that they're getting the help that their child needs and letting us all see so that we can all learn from it. And I do. I said before, I look at this and I remember what it was like in my home, but I do learn on a regular basis because I can sit here and watch it dispassionately. It's not my child who's crying or trying to kick me or trying to bite me. And I think we can all relate to the fact that it's different when you're there, when it's you. You see that moment when the mom was trying to get him to walk on the sidewalk and the dad was just, you could feel the pent-up tension in him, right? And we all understand that. It's so frustrating. Why can't I get through to my child? Why won't he communicate with me? Why can't he understand what I'm saying to him? And why can't we just walk down the sidewalk, right? Everybody else is doing it. Why can't my kid do it? And all the emotions that come with that. And we see it on that dad man, and the mom is trying to stay calm, and she's trying to walk with him, and the therapist is there helping, and the child's trying to kick her. The child's trying to bite her. He's trying to get at her to bite her. I know what I would be feeling if I was her, but watching it from here, I get to look at it and go, oh, she's not a bad parent at all. Right? And this is savable. And as soon as they teach him this, he's going to be able to ask for the grass and go to the grass, and this behavior is going to go away. It's not the end of the world, right? Because it's not my child. So we get to learn from it. Really, really amazing. And to see sometimes when they don't get it, the parents, because we don't always get it. This dad and his frustration that I just so relate to, this dad. I really do. The anger and the frustration that I would feel when we were going through this, and I see it on him, and he vocalizes it. My goodness. Somebody who can talk about their feelings and of the male persuasion, how much do we love that? And he stands there at the end and says, things were getting better. And why is this happening? And I don't know what to do. And my tools went away. I'm trying to learn, but I don't know what to do. Even though you guys are here and you're showing me when it's in the real situation, I don't always know what to do. I just want to hug him. I just want to hug him and say, it's going to be okay. We have all felt this way. And I think it's a gift to us that he admits it and says, this is what I'm feeling. And it feels bad, and it feels like nothing good is ever going to happen again. Last week when he was saying, something like this happens, and all the progress that he's made seems like nil. Like, oh, okay, now we're back to the autism page where, he's never going to go on a date, and he's never going to play a team sport, and he's never going to go to college, right? We all go there, but we don't have to. It's natural. So we cut ourselves some slack. Okay, I'm having this emotion. I'm feeling a loss, but what's really happening and what do we need to do about it? And the therapist says, well, you're going to have to be consistent. Gosh, it's so much easier than it sounds. It's so much easier. It's so much harder than what it sounds. She makes it sound like it's just this easy thing where you just go, oh, I'll be consistent with my consequences. Oh, is that all? Great. And even as she's saying it, you see that she's like, oh, it's so hard. It's so hard. But we need to watch these moments so that it gives us strength as we're going through them, because as we'll see next week, and as we already saw towards the end here, Jack Riley does make the progress. He is going to be able to walk down the sidewalk without biting anyone ever again. It's very, very exciting. And Dad will get excited again and see that his son is going to play on team sports, and he's going to go on dates, and he's going to go to college. These things are possible. But it means walking through some really difficult times and having to say, I don't know what to do. I need some help. Really, really fabulous. Please watch this entire series. You can go on their YouTube page and you can type in specific words if you want to see when they were toileting him, or you want to see what ended up happening with this biting. You absolutely can watch forward and backward. We just like to watch one episode per week. I like to take it slow because it's so good. All right, we're going to take a break, and we'll be back more after these messages.
When Maddie was diagnosed, I'll be honest, I was very ignorant on what autism was. I knew that autism was basically something that hit boys at the age of 2 to 3 and shut down. And sometimes you think of the typical Rain Man movie. And with Maddie, she was doing all the same signs and symptoms of a typical child with autism spectrum disorder.
Stand up.
She didn't even acknowledge us coming into the room. She had barely any eye contact. She didn't interact with her sisters. She didn't really do anything. She just basically lined up her toys, and that was about it. We have a team of 7 volunteers, or 8 now. We have 8 volunteers, including my husband and I. And I'm the team leader, and so I do all the curriculum and get everything ready each week.
Jana was downstairs until 11 o'clock at night working on curriculum, going through 2 different textbooks. And then we, as a group, meet on Monday nights and we would go through what the curriculum was from Jana. And a lot of times we would go, well, how exactly do you do that? How do you sit her at the table and do this trial base? What Skills has done for us, it's taken that away from Jana trying to figure out the curriculum for one. She can go down, or even our laptop, and she can sit down, and through all these questions, it comes up with the different programs.
At least for me, it was a relief off my shoulders. I was worried that I might be missing something, missing a curriculum that maybe she needs to know, where Skills, they have every possible thing your child needs to know from 0 to 7. They have a program for that.
What noise is this?
Good job! Every program that we did with her, I knew it was specific for what she needed to learn. Because before Skills, it was a lot of, okay, well, is that really age appropriate for a 2-year-old? You know, because it's not generalized. It's anywhere from 0 to 7. This is what your child needs to know, and in most manuals you'll find. But for this, okay, yep, she should be learning this. And no, she's not 4 yet. She doesn't need to know that yet.
We are so fortunate that Jana was able to attend a conference put on by CARD that opened the door for Skills, and that there's no looking back for us.
We started using the program in November. It seemed like by January something just clicked, and she has completely kind of came out of her fog that she was in for quite a while.
I have never read a documented case on any child that has not benefited anything from applied behavior analysis, and now with this new Skills and being, you know, like the E version of ABA, I can't imagine it doing anything harmful to their child. It's nothing but exponential growth for us.
To see her now, it just blows us away. I mean, we call her our little miracle child because in 7 months' time, she's just blossomed into this normal, functioning child, and suddenly, we joke about it all the time, like suddenly we have twins.
If you're even thinking about doing it, do it. Because the absolute worst thing you can do is do nothing at all. And even if you use this program and it's just a single mom or a single dad working in the evenings with their child, this program is going to benefit them. It's going to show you where they are, it's going to show you where they need to go, and it's going to show you what skills and how to get there. It is an online book on how to help recover your child.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're so thrilled that on this Thursday, usually we don't get him until Friday, but today we have Dr. Jonathan Tarbox with us. Thank you for being here. And you are the Director of Research and Development here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders.
That's correct.
You're the head of that, and you're the Director of the Autism Research Group.
That's correct.
Okay. And actually, we had a question that came in a little bit earlier, and that was about something that's on the Autism Research Group website.
Great. Hopefully I'll have a good answer.
About connection and how somebody would like to collaborate with Megan Hines, and so I sent them to your website.
Great.
But I'll also forward that to you, and maybe we can see that they get together. And maybe we should talk for just a second about what Connection is.
Sure. Yeah. So Connection is basically a play group or a hangout group for siblings of kids on the spectrum. No parents allowed, no kids on the spectrum allowed. It's just the siblings, and it's just a place for them to have fun and an opportunity to basically unwind, blow off some steam. So we hang out at the park, have some pizza, play some games, whatever. In the future, we're planning on doing some field trips to different places, things like that. But it's run by Megan Hines, who's a really a brilliant woman who is a sibling of a child on the spectrum, so she knows, she has personal experience, and she runs the group, and actually it was her idea, and she came up with this idea and said, let's do this. I said, absolutely, fantastic. And so it's on hiatus right now. Megan is actually in graduate school. She's finishing up her master's in ABA, and so It's going to start up again sometime soon, maybe over the summer. But yeah, if folks are interested, they should definitely contact us. Right now, it's just occurring in the valley, the San Fernando Valley, northern Los Angeles area. But we have plans to expand it to other communities. Essentially, all it takes is one person who's a sibling who has a passion for supporting other siblings. And we can give them the model, train them on how to do it, and help them set it up and get it going in their community.
And filling such a need.
Absolutely.
Because we all have that feeling of what happens to the siblings. We want to make sure it's a positive experience.
That's right. Yeah.
Really, really helpful. What a great idea that she had. So we'll make sure that we get the email to you to connect them with Megan Hines. Now, last week when you were here, was it last week or the week before? I think it was the week before. We kept on saying that we were going to talk about when they use mice and when they talk about the mice model.
Right.
Because this, I have to say, we covered another study this week on Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy, where they were using mice again in the news this week about autism. And I voiced then that I have concerns about that from time to time. When I hear about this, I go, well, what exactly are the mice doing? Is it really, they say, these autism-like behaviors in mice? How reliable is that? Talk to us about what that is exactly.
Okay, so there's a long history of using animal models of various disorders in science, and a lot of really important scientific gains have been made doing research with animal models of different diseases. So the general idea or the general approach is pretty standard, actually. It's not specific to autism. However, though, anytime you want to create an animal model of a disorder, if you don't know exactly what causes the disorder, that's your biggest hurdle, because how are you going to know how to cause it in a mouse if you don't know what causes it in a human, right? So they come up with different genetic models that will basically get the animal to sort of act like someone, like a human who has the disorder. So some of these genetic mouse models of autism, the mice do things like this. They socialize with the other mice less. They spend more time alone. They spend more time engaging in repetitive behaviors like self-grooming to a much larger degree. They have a more difficult time learning, so they have learning tasks where mice will learn new sequences of behaviors, and the animal models of autism, those mice, it'll be more challenging for them to learn. So it's sort of a model of some of the challenges that folks on the spectrum have, say, learning in school.
So in the beginning, they take mice that appear to be typical, or do they start with mice that are already engaged in these behaviors?
They start with some, there's different ways to do it, but I think a lot of them start with a hunch, like this particular gene might be involved in autism.
Right.
So let's disrupt this gene in some way in mice and see what happens.
And when they disrupt that, they just disrupt it in utero before the mouse is born, or after
I'm not a genetics expert. I'm a behavior doctor, not a genetics doctor.
Because I'm just thinking, so what are they in a lab and separating mice and go, these ones are engaged in these behaviors?
It's when the mice are born. They already have this genetic makeup that's different.
All right.
And what they can do is disable particular genes. So if they think a particular gene is really important, they can disable that gene before the mouse is born, and so now the mouse behaves differently because of that.
Wow. So it really is like science fiction if you're disabling genes and enabling other ones.
It's very advanced science. It's very interesting stuff. Honestly, the extent to which it really genuinely does model autism, we still don't know. So we really don't know how legitimate these models are. But that's how science works. No one knows beforehand. That's the point of doing research. So these researchers who are creating these mouse models, they don't know for sure, but we'll never know unless they do the work. And sometimes it could take 10 or 20 years to really develop a program of research in a particular area. So, we'll see. I would say 10 or 20 years from now, we'll know what the value was of all of these mouse models of autism. Right now, I'm cautiously optimistic.
Right.
One thing to consider, though, when it comes to modeling any disorder is you have to think about what are sort of the really key characteristics of that disorder, and is it even possible to model those in a particular species? So now, do mice socialize? Absolutely, right?
Okay.
So if we create mice that have deficits in socialization, maybe that kind of models the deficits in social interaction that we see in autism, right?
Right.
But another huge part of autism is language and communication, right? And so deficits in ability to develop communication. So how much do mice communicate? How much do mice have language? I'm sure there's some kind of social communication going on between mice. And again, I'm no expert in mice, but I'm quite sure that mice don't have the level of complexity of language that humans have, right? So I'm not totally sure about that piece. I mean, I'm sure that's something that they're grappling with, and they're thinking about, like, can we really model language and communication issues in mice? We don't know yet. We'll see.
And, okay, here's my naive question. But our brains are dissimilar to mice, aren't they? So how likely are that we're going to be able to see that something works with mice is going to translate to working with...
Well, so yeah, so there's different breeds of mice that their entire genetic sequence has been mapped, their entire physiology has been studied, you know, just ad nauseum, so they know exactly what's going on with this species of animal, genetically, physiologically, biologically, and everything else. And so they can determine the extent to which this part of the animal is similar to that same part of the human, right? And so there's actually pig models of heart disease, because pigs have hearts that are very similar to human hearts, which is strange. You'd think they'd be really different size animals, but actually quite similar. And so there actually are, that piece they kind of do have figured out. They can at least, well, I mean, they can at least determine the extent to which it's reasonable to say that this brain is similar to this brain, because they've studied the two brains enough to know, yeah, okay, it has the same parts. It has more or less the same cellular structure, more or less the same, you know, etc.
Interesting. So, because my next question was going to be, are they going to do it with mice? What's the progression? Like, do they do something with mice and then they go to baboons and then they get to human trials?
Well, it depends. I mean, if they found a real smoking gun type of piece of evidence with mice, then maybe it would progress to human trials if it was something that was extremely low risk, right? But, you know, it just depends. If we're talking some kind of brain surgery or something like that, they're not going to go directly from mice to humans, because you could obviously kill someone or hurt someone, right? So it really depends on what they're studying. One really interesting program of research coming out of the Mind Institute at UC Davis is on maternal antibodies, so sort of autoimmune issues present in mothers of children with autism. And what they actually found was they identified a couple of specific antibodies that were present in mothers of children with autism that were not present in mothers of typically developing children. So just that is pretty interesting. And those antibodies were present in the mother, and it wasn't causing a problem for the mother, right? And so they hypothesized, well, maybe during pregnancy, if the antibodies cross the blood-brain barrier for the baby, for the fetus, which they do, maybe that would affect the fetal brain development in utero while, you know, during pregnancy. And so what they did to test that hypothesis was they isolated those antibodies from the blood of these mothers, human mothers, and then they actually injected it into rhesus monkeys. Okay. I was some primate. I think it was rhesus monkeys. Might have been macaques. And then what they did was they got them pregnant. And then they studied their offspring. And sure enough, their offspring did a lot of repetitive behaviors and didn't spend much time interacting with each other. So as far as repetitive behavior and deficits in socialization, it actually had some very similar effects in these primates as we see in humans on the spectrum. So again, you know, it was very preliminary, but it's possible that they've identified one specific factor that might contribute to autism in some people.
That's fascinating to me, because I don't know if you've been here when I've talked before about going to a conference a couple of years ago, right after I had been diagnosed with autoimmune issues, which was news to me, right? Totally out of the blue to me. And I go to this autism conference to cover it and to be there as a parent as well. And I'm going around interviewing all these different parents, and I go to there was a talk about the immune system and autism, and I go to sit in on this talk, and they start talking about, the statistic was given that in their particular research they looked at mothers and asked how many of them had autoimmune issues, and it was very high, like 87% of the people that had children
typically developing
87% of the moms who had children on the autism spectrum that were in their study, and it was just something that they noticed while they were looking at other stuff. They went, wow, that seems to be very high. And as the person who was presenting, I wish I could remember which doctor it was presenting, was saying this, you know how there's like a little rumble that goes through the audience, and people go, and I sat up a little bit taller because I went, okay, you're talking about the neighborhood that I'm in this week, and I heard just all this mutter. So the rest of the weekend, as I went around and as I was interviewing people, I'd interview them, and then when it was over, microphone off, I would say, I'm just curious, how many of you have autoimmune issues? Every single one except for one.
Wow.
Every single. Now, I was at a conference where they were talking about those kinds of things.
Right, of
So
course.
was it
It's
because
not a representative
those
sample.
moms
Yeah.
were going to be there at that conference? Would I have found that at every single conference? And would we have found it of people who don't go to conferences? I don't know.
Who knows? Yeah.
But it was shocking to me.
And so there are researchers that are following up on those lines of research, but science is just painfully slow. I mean, if I have a great idea right now and it's going to cost a few $1 million to study it, it could take me 5 years just to get the funding. Right,
Wow.
and then it could take another 5 years to do the research, and then once we have preliminary data, then it could take another 10 years to really follow it up with good, sound scientific research that gets published in journals. So, it's especially medical science is just painfully slow.
Frustrating, right?
Absolutely.
And especially in light of, you know, some of the things that we've been talking about today, these 1 in 50 numbers, and I want to talk a little bit more about all of that with you and run something by you. But let's take a break first, and we'll come back more with Dr. Jonathan Tarbox, and now's a great time if you have questions, and I see that we've had some comments that we'll try to get to as well. Stick with us. Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, host of Autism Live. As the mom of a young man on the autism spectrum, I frequently look to the world and hope for compassion. Well, recently I told my son that he should treat others the way he wants them to treat him. That's when I realized that it's high time that I start walking my talk. This April, for Autism Awareness Month, Autism Live is asking everyone to perform an act of compassion. Do something nice for someone else. That's why I've decided to shave my head to show support for a young dad who's fighting brain cancer. How will you show your compassion? Compassion is a tool of change, but only when we take action. How we treat others teaches them how to treat us in return. This April, the autism community has the ability to lead by example by putting compassion in action. This can be a small act or a large one. It can be close to home or towards someone on the other side of the planet. If we all perform an act of compassion, who knows? We might just change the world. Get involved and show us your compassion in action on Facebook.com/AutismLive. And tune in on April 8th to watch me shave my head live on the air. We are not powerless. We can create change. Compassion in action. Welcome back to Autism Live. Our very special guest in the studio right now is Dr. Jonathan Tarbox. Thank you for being here.
Great to be here.
I want to start with a question that somebody just wrote in. They said, Shannon, I made a terrible mistake by signing an IEP agreement that listed a handful of academic goals for my son. Then for the next 2 school years, he was only taught those handful of goals in the exact same method every day, 2 hours a day, over the past 2 school years. Goals like telling time, addition, subtraction, etc. I would get so frustrated wondering what in the world he was missing while he was in the resource room. Never again will I allow the IEP contract to specify a few academic goals. How do you do it for Jem? And thanks. We're going to show that for you. And both Dr. Tarbox and I would like to talk a little bit about that. I had said earlier, don't sign it until you go home and look at it.
Absolutely.
Because it's so... you know, I don't want to cast our teaching and education professionals in a horrible, horrible light, because I think that most people who go into the field of education go in with kind hearts and they want to help our children. Otherwise, they wouldn't pick that field.
Right. Yeah, it's too much work.
There's not enough reinforcing to be there financially or anything else. So, you know, you'd have to be crazy or really want to help kids.
Right.
Unfortunately, from time to time, you run across the people who are not the ones who, and I'm going to say this and I'm going to take heat for it, sometimes those are the administrators.
Yeah,
it happens. So not all of them by any stretch of the imagination, but we have a job as parents to make sure that we don't get involved in that we just advocate for our child.
Right. And, you know, another thing to consider is you can care all you want to the end, you know, to the nth degree.
Yeah.
You can care more than anybody else. But honestly, if you don't know how to fix the problem, then caring is only the start. That's not enough.
Amen to that.
So, I mean, I care a lot about fixing my car, but if I'm not a mechanic, if I'm not trained on how to fix this particular problem, and I don't honestly know how to do it, it doesn't matter how much I care.
Great analogy. And that is one of the biggest problems that we have pretty much across the board people in the education system who have not kept up with the technology and the research about what works and is effective with our kids.
Or
and the
we're
techniques.
just never trained adequately to begin with.
Yeah, it's really, and I would say that the same is true with a lot of our pediatricians as well, that they have not kept pace with what's happening in autism, which, that becomes another thing on our plate as parents, that we have to educate people, right? Not what I planned on doing this Tuesday, right? It wasn't on my schedule, as it were.
That's the hand you were dealt.
Right, it's the hand we were dealt. And so we have to do it. So if you've gone ahead and signed the IEP and you now see, and it's 2 years later, that something is up, the first thing that I want to say is forgive yourself. Because you did what you did on that day thinking it was what was best for your child. Now you have new information.
Right.
And things can be different today. But so I'm going to ask you, Dr. Tarbox, to start with what kinds of things that she might ask for if all they've had is this.
Sure. Well, there's a couple huge red flags from this woman's contribution here. The first is the idea of working on a small number of goals the same way every day for 2 years.
Right.
And now they want to work on those same things the same way again.
Let's keep doing it.
Yeah. What we've clearly proven here is what they're doing doesn't work, right? So it could be that the goals are not appropriate. Maybe they're too hard, maybe they're too easy, maybe they're too boring. It could be that the teaching procedures that they're using are not effective for this child. Maybe the reinforcement is ineffective. Maybe there is no reinforcement. Maybe there's ineffective prompting, right? We know there's a million different variables that can affect whether or not a teaching procedure actually works for a child on the spectrum. But in any case, what they've shown very clearly is it doesn't work, okay? So that's the first
Or there is a possibility that it's working and they just haven't challenged the child to go on and do anything else. It's possible that he's met these goals and they're still staying there.
Oh, well, that's
know. It's even
that's
worse.
Even worse, yeah.
It's even worse, but I just want to say that I have seen that.
Okay.
So that's a possibility.
They just kind of keep the kid in the same place just because that's kind of what works.
Because that's what their program has.
Right. That's actually a very good point.
Very scary.
It's very scary.
Okay, so continue on.
So, but then the second issue is, it sounds like what your listener is saying is that there's a broader range of issues that are important to this child's life, not just a few academic goals, telling time and whatever it was, letters and numbers or whatever it is.
Right.
And quite frankly, we see this all the time for kids on the spectrum, especially in the educational setting, is the focus tends to be on academics, which is great. Academics are important, and we don't want to throw those in the toilet. But what matters a lot more than academics is a person's ability to function in their daily life. And that absolutely is part of what public schools are required to do in special education, is improve the child's functioning in their daily lives, not just academics.
Right. Can we get a choir to be singing amen in the background?
So
feels like that would be appropriate right about now. Right?
So it seems like, things like spontaneous, meaningful communication. So when your child wants something, they're able to communicate that to other people in a way that other people understand, okay? Way more critical than academics, okay? It doesn't have to be vocal. It could be through sign language. It could be through picture exchange. It could be through a voice output communication device, etc. But independent, spontaneous communication so that the child can have their wants and needs met. So I need help. I need to go to the bathroom. I want to have a break. Can I have, I want to play, please. Can I have some food? I'm hungry. These basic needs, that's the very, very first thing that you need to start with.
Right.
And then meaningful leisure and play skills and social skills is a huge thing, right? Yeah. So if this child spending all their time working on academics, but they're still pretty challenged in being able to play with peers, that's something that needs to be addressed, right?
Yeah.
And so if your child is lacking basic play skills or peer interaction skills, that's a major area, because if they don't make gains in that, it's going to be harder to make friends and maintain meaningful relationships with others, right? You got to have these basic social interaction skills.
Yeah, absolutely. And then in terms of the academics, I mean, because it seems like, correct me if I'm wrong, there's probably this push me, pull you kind of thing going on, that I don't hear the mom saying that the academics aren't important, but there's no progress.
Right. Well, and that's... Yeah.
And again, we get back to, well, is there progress that, or is it that they're not teaching it the right way, or the progress is there and they just haven't moved on? We got to move the goalpost every once in a while.
Right.
But either way, something's got to change.
Right, and it's their job. I mean, the reason why an IEP exists is because it says, here's what the kid's going to learn by the end of the year, and here are milestones.
Legally binding.
It's the job of the educational team to move the needle, to make that learning happen. And of course, you're not going to get 100% with everything, but learning happens with people with autism. Kids are capable of learning, and so there should be measurable progress at every quarter, and certainly at every year, Mark.
Yeah.
And if that's not there, they're not doing their job.
And we're supposed to get benchmark when the report cards come out at the regular times that the report cards come out. As parents, we're supposed to get benchmarks saying, here's the goal, here's the IEP goal from each one of the people who are responsible for teaching it. So it says the goal, and then it says first quarter, second quarter, however your school does it, and they're supposed to write, we're having this kind of progress. We're now doing it 3 out of 4 trials, and whatever it is. And if they're not moving towards the target, it's supposed to explain what they're going to do that's going to change.
Yeah, well,
that's what it's supposed to be. If it's not, that's certainly a cause for a reason for calling an emergency IEP meeting, in my thinking.
Sure.
And when you guys talk about the variables that are involved, if you see that a child isn't learning something, all the different things that can be changed, one of them is the teacher. Right?
Right, absolutely.
Right? If the teacher, and if it's been the same person for a while and they're not getting it done, that's one of the variables that you can ask to change. But what are some of the other variables that potentially can be changed?
Honestly, there's so many of them that it requires someone who specializes in that. It's called a behavior analyst.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Your traditional special education training, like if you just go and get your sort of average teaching certificate or credential in special education, it doesn't cover everything you need to know to effectively teach kids with autism. It just doesn't.
Right.
There are a few exceptions. There are a few special ed programs, masters in special ed programs, that do cover all of this, but the vast majority do not.
Right.
And so if the school district doesn't have staff who are experts in ABA and in designing and supervising educational programs for children with autism and making learning happen in kids with autism, if the school district doesn't have that, you need to demand that.
Okay.
And it is their job to provide that if that's deemed an appropriate education for your child.
Okay. So it would be entirely reasonable at this point for the parent to call an emergency IEP meeting and say, I want to be able to speak to the BCBA that's assigned to my case about why we're not seeing progress.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to give that specific direction to this family because I don't know.
And we don't give child specific or parent specific.
Right. But in general, if your kid is working on the same things for 2 years, not showing progress, and you don't believe that your child's educational team is effective and competent to make your child learn on a daily basis, then absolutely it's appropriate to call an emergency IEP.
Okay. And most schools should have a BCBA that they can call on, whether they're on staff or that they can call on. You might as well ask for it to say, who is the BCBA who is assigned to this school? I would like them present.
Right.
And normally when we tell people to get a BCB, call the BCBA, and it's usually to get an FBA to see a challenging behavior. But is there a name for what, if we want the BCBA to look at why learning isn't happening?
Well, we talk about it as an assessment of the child's skill acquisition component to their program, or some people talk about it as assessments of barriers to learning.
Okay.
But it's an assessment of what's going on in terms of the child's ability to learn new skills, and how can we accelerate that process? How can we make it more effective?
But it seems to me that the core here is that there should be a presumption that the child can learn new skills.
Absolutely.
And that perhaps what we're seeing is that the school maybe isn't aware of that.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that's very, very common that we still see that in special education. We see just sort of an assumption that, oh, well, Jimmy has a lot of issues, so it's going to be a tough road. And that's a fine thing to say, but Jimmy also knows how to learn stuff.
Right.
All children with autism are capable of learning, every single one. And so if learning isn't happening, someone's dropping the ball.
Yeah.
It's just that simple.
And I think as parents, we need to pick and choose our battles, but when it's important, and we know, we get that feeling in the pit of our stomach, we know, okay, this is one that I'm going to have to suit up and show up, right? Mm-hmm. And then I'm not going to take no for an answer within a certain realm of, you decide for yourself, here's where I'm willing to compromise, here's where I'm not. And beyond that, no means no.
Right. And just keep in mind, unfortunately, in most educational settings, the status quo is kind of average to low quality, and people will accept that. People get used to that. And so if you allow your child's team to accept that with your child, there's a good chance they will. There's a good chance they'll do just enough to kind of be okay, to be pretty good.
Yeah.
But if you demand excellence, well, let me put it another way. It's the families that demand excellence that get it.
Yeah, it's the squeaky wheels. It really is. And we're always afraid. You know, and I want you to know that I was afraid too. I was like, oh, if I rock the boat, then I'm going to be labeled the trouble parent.
Right.
I have a label on my back that says trouble with a capital T that is so huge that they see me coming and sometimes run in the opposite direction. You know what? I'm okay with that because it's made the difference for my child. I was saying to someone not on the air, I've told the story before on the air, that at the very first, it was actually the pre-IEP meeting, the first IEP meeting, and I was trying to be all polite and nice and get along and ask questions, and I really didn't know what I was doing that first one. But there was somebody who was there, and they had brought her because I had expressed interest in ABA. We hadn't started ABA yet, and they brought her because they said, oh, and this is our ABA person. And so I made sure that I sat next to her because I thought, we are going to have a meeting of the minds. And in fact, that was not the case. We had there was a spectrum between us, let's say that, right? And at one point, you know, she was saying things and I was saying, no, that's not what I want. And somebody said, well, what is it you do want for your child? Let's be clear. And I said, well, he was about to turn 3. And I said, I want my child, because of the studies I've seen, I want my child to have a 40-hour program in home this next year so that when he's 4, he can go to preschool, so that when he's 5, he can go to kindergarten on time and be at grade level and be all the way caught up in a regular classroom, right? And that's... And let me just tell you, they looked at me like I was crazy because my child wasn't speaking,
right?
And was in the corner trying to dismantle a table while we were having this discussion, right? And you know, and couldn't be contained in a small space. So some people looked at me with pity, and some people looked at me like I was crazy. There was one person who rolled eyes, but the person who was the ABA person looked at me and she went, well, that's going to be hard. And, you know, I always say it was the defining moment for me as an autism parent because it was like the marble dropped. Before that, I was being cautious and like I didn't want to step on anybody's toes. And I went, oh, game on. And I got the girlfriend maneuver and everything going. And I said, oh, don't you talk to me about hard. Don't you talk to me about hard. I had to be told that my child I know all about hard. You talk to me about what's possible and only about what's possible. And that was the moment when we realized she wasn't going to be on our team. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And that was okay. Yeah. That was perfectly okay with me that she wasn't going to be on the team. And you will find people along the way. You know, fast forward exactly a year later, and I was on that same campus, and my child had the 40-hour program in home. And there were a lot of tears and a little bit of blood spilt over it, but, you know, he had the 40-hour program in home, and he was on that campus to have a little speech session for half hour. And I always used to say I wanted to look in a crystal ball to see the future so that I would know I was doing the right thing. And I looked up, I was waiting for him out by the front of the school, and I saw him coming across the campus with the speech teacher, holding her hand and looking up at her and talking to her as they were walking towards me. Wow. And over here, I saw that woman who said, oh, well, that's going to be hard, walking with another child who had been in an early intervention group with my son, and he couldn't walk and hold her hand and was, you know, looking at the ground and looking somebody. So I saw them walking towards me and my child walking towards me and saw the difference of what a year had made because powerful. I fought. And wow, you want to talk about shook me to the ground about where we were versus where we could have been. Right. And when I think about the parent who, you know, I could have been the parent of that other child had I not said,
most people still are.
Oh, no.
Most people still are.
You know, so you have to get your Norma Ray on, right? And you get your finger going and you get the head maneuver going when you have to. I think most of the time it's better to be nice, but sometimes when people aren't going to do it, you just say, well, then you're not going to be on our team.
Right.
And that's how I roll. And then we can laugh about it afterwards, but at the time,
it's not your job to make them feel comfortable. It's your job to advocate for your kid.
Yeah.
And it's not their job to, you know, to have a nice little interaction with you. It's their job to make your child learn.
Yeah. And can I say that the rest of the people who were there when she said the thing and they saw my spine go up and I said, oh, don't you talk to me about hard. Everybody else said, oh, you know what? She didn't mean that. I'm so sorry. We would never want to. And they all felt really bad because that was an inappropriate thing to say. Oh, that's going to be hard. And also fast forward another year and my son did go to kindergarten on time with his peers caught up.
That's fantastic.
There. There.
You should track her down and just let her know.
Oh, she has seen me a couple of times. She's one of the people that turns and goes the other way because we are not friends. How sad is that? She's not on my Christmas card list. Oh, well. These things happen.
Maybe you should send her a Christmas card describing how Jem's doing.
Well, you know, our Christmas card every year is a video Christmas card where we show all the things that he's done throughout the year. And the year before last, I didn't have time this year, but the year before last, he narrated it. He did the voiceover for it. So I should send her a Christmas card. Somebody recently said to me, have you gone back to talk to the original pediatrician who diagnosed him, who said, when I said to her, what do I do? And she said to me, well, just promise me you won't do ABA with this child. It'll turn him into a robot. And I said, I have not gone back to this doctor and said, you need to stop saying that to people.
Bring him back to her.
Well, it's her, and she...
bring Jem back to her.
Oh, yeah. I see what you're saying. Yeah, bring him to her and say, this is my child who is not a robot.
How about that? Yeah.
He'll sit and tell you jokes. And make jokes up with you. That's right. Invent jokes. Yes, not my not robot child. I guess these are little full circles that I haven't gone all the way around yet. Okay, so we're going to take a quick break. And do you want to stay, or do you need to be places?
I think I have a couple minutes.
Okay, so we'll be back more with Dr. Tarbox. Stick with us. Have you ever noticed that when you do something nice for someone else, you feel great afterwards? It's because in that moment, you know you've shown kindness and compassion in a world that sometimes can seem chaotic and isolating. Well, this April, for Autism Awareness Month, Autism Live is asking everyone to put compassion in action. We all expect others to show compassion to our kids, to us, and to our families. What better way than to show compassion ourselves? That's why I'm asking everyone to do something nice for someone else. If we all take just one act of compassion, who knows? Maybe we can change the world. So watch Autism Live to find out how you can participate in our Compassion in Action campaign. And then make sure you tune in on April 8th when I will shave my head 5 for a young dad with cancer. That's my way of taking action and compassion. We are not powerless. We can create change. Compassion in action. Feel the love and the breeze. Welcome back to Autism Live. How many days away are we from head shaving, Emily? 18 days away from head shaving. It's very exciting. I cannot wait to have this whole mop taken completely off.
That's very exciting.
And of course, we're very excited to hear from all of you about what you're going to do for Compassion in Action. We're starting to take videos now because this entire campaign is about what you're going to do. Not what I'm going to do, but what are we all going to do? And especially after getting those numbers yesterday, 1 in 50, you might be feeling today like, I don't know what to do. And there's a whole lot that's to be done, right? A whole lot to be done. But here's something you can do today. Do something nice for somebody else. Tip the balance back to good stuff.
That's a really great point.
And then write to us or videotape it to us so that we can share it here on the show. Okay, we had some follow-up to the mom talking about the IEP goals that are not appropriate. And they wrote back and said, if I demanded a BCBA person for my child's neighborhood public school, they would say he would have to go to another school outside our neighborhood where they have an autism program. He has attended our neighborhood school for 4 years. I will not pull him out to attend the district's one-on-one only autism classroom at another school. And you know what? I hear in that statement, I hear a boundary there that, you know, he's staying at this school. And I think anytime we have a boundary, I think that's great. And I think it's great to tell people, you know, here's my boundary and this is what's happening. Now we're going to work around that. What shall we do? Right? I think being clear is a fabulous thing. And they may say to you, oh no, we don't have a BCBA at this site. Then you might ask them, okay, I don't want to have to get a lawyer. Right? But if you're not seeing progress on the goals, then they're not in compliance. And you can say, I'm afraid that we have a non-compliance issue. And you can word it exactly that way. I think we're looking at non-compliance here. And I'm being told to get a lawyer. I really don't want to do that. Surely we don't have to do that. What can you do for me? If you don't have a BCBA at this site, who do you have come in when you're not in compliance and there are barriers to learning? What do you do in that case? And then let them sort it out.
That's a great point.
They will go back and they will say, oh, you know, she used the word non-compliant and she used the word lawyer, and people will just change their depend undergarments and they will sort it out. I know I said I'm just, I'm in a silly mood today. But that's the truth. I mean, they will start to get concerned.
Oftentimes that is what it takes. Yeah.
It is what it is. And you can say it really nicely, you know. And I always say, oh, it's not me. You know, my brother-in-law is a lawyer, and he, you know, he's just telling me that I have to do this. And I just do what he tells me to. Right? Sure. So, you know, I've invented lawyers before. You just say what you have to say. And you be really nice about it, but there still is something that has to be gotten done. And if you have that boundary, he's going to stay at this school. I appreciate that. I really do. I felt the same way that I wanted Jem to stay at one school, but that doesn't mean that they get to take a vacation.
Right.
It just doesn't. So you can put them on notice. And you also wrote in and said, I'm afraid that they would take it out on my child if I rock the boat. And you know what? Thank you for saying that, because that's the heart of the whole thing.
It really is, yeah.
You know, and that is what we all feel. And every time that I go in and ask for something or get even remotely confrontational with anybody about my child, that is exactly the core
It's the first thing you think of. Yeah, it's the first thing you fear. Yeah.
And we've been talking with Evelyn Gould about, you know, when we have issues with something, it's because there's a moral issue that's huge to us. It's so important that our children are treated nicely at school. You want to make sure of that. And I can't carte blanche say to you that no one ever will take it out on your child, but the law is with you that they can't,
right, and
that they shouldn't. And, you know, you have to protect yourself in the way that you can, but I will tell you that in the vast majority of cases, they don't.
Right. Yeah.
Because they can't.
Right. And they don't want to create more trouble.
Right.
You know?
Right. And as soon as you know, do be aware of the first time that you use the word lawyer, it is going to have a ripple effect. They are gonna say, oh, parent problem. And I just want to say to you, that's not the worst thing that can happen to you.
Right. Oftentimes it's necessary.
At the end of the day and at the end of our lives, I would sit and say to myself some night, I would say, well, do I want to say that I got along with everybody at this school, or do I want to be able to look my child in the eye and say I did everything?
Right.
And for me, that answer was very clear.
Pretty clear, yeah.
And that meant that I wasn't going to be friends with that woman. And you know what? My life goes on.
Right.
And I'm sure hers does too. A difference of opinion. But it's my kid. And we all feel very strongly when it is our kid. And you want to be able to, I hear from you in that first section that you wrote in about how it's been 2 years, and you said, Shannon, I made a mistake. I don't think you made a mistake. I think you listened to people and you gave them an opportunity and they didn't follow through.
That's right. Yeah.
And now you're saying, I'm not okay with this anymore.
And you don't have to be.
And you don't have to be. Absolutely. And I'm ready to do something else. I'm just figuring out which direction. I think if you let them know that you're done with the status quo, I hope that they'll get it together. If nothing else, the fear
probably
of
get some movement. Yeah.
Yeah. If nothing else, the fear of what is this mom going to do otherwise. We talk about this all the time, that with our kids recognize when we say no and it means no, and when we say no and we kind of we're movable on it, right?
Right.
I think the teachers and the administrators recognize it too.
Absolutely.
In us. So get your no on, get your Norma Ray on.
Yeah, and like you said, if you have a particular border or a particular boundary and you're not willing to move past that, you should let them know.
Yeah.
The sooner you get that out there in the open, the better.
Absolutely. They were looking at moving Jem's school 2 different years, and I said no. And I said, you're going to have to find something. And they kept coming back and saying, well, how about this? And I kept on saying, no, he's going to go to school here. So figure it out.
And it took that many times of you having to disappoint them for them to come around and finally create a program that you were comfortable with.
Yep.
And they did it.
And I always quote my niece, my fabulous niece, that her quote is, I'm sorry, but that won't be possible.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Just solves it all. I'm sorry, but that won't be possible. Really quickly, because we're running out of time. So 1 in 50, we're hearing different things about these different numbers. My hope is that if nothing else, that some people start to panic and create some movement.
Right.
I just, want your opinion in terms of what you think we need. I said today we need to make sure that access to therapy is there and that people are researching to find out why the prevalence is rising, and that I don't think either of those things are going to happen unless we appoint a special counsel with somebody the head of it, the way they did with AIDS years ago, to say this person is our government official that reports to the president and is responsible for putting all of these puzzle pieces together.
That's a great idea. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, do you have anything to add to that or feel differently that something?
Oh, no.
What do we need?
I don't even know where to begin. There's so much. I mean, from my perspective, the thing that I see on a daily basis that we need so badly is competent people available to deliver the therapy. And I don't care if it happens in public schools, private schools, in home-based programs, clinics. I don't care where it happens, but it needs to happen and it needs to be available. And it needs to be free.
Okay.
And so, a great way to move towards that would be to have BCBA programs embedded in special education programs. So when you go to get your master's degree in special ed, you automatically become a BCBA also, if you're interested in autism. Maybe be one option, one track. There's not very many of these programs. There is one in Massachusetts at a college called Endicott College. Mike Dorsey, Dr. Mike Dorsey.
Dr. Dorsey's been here.
Created it, yeah. And so they are starting to pop up, but there's very, very few still. And that would automatically take away a lot of this battle. I mean, if the special ed teacher was a BCBA already, that's it, right? Already you have basically what you need in that classroom. And then it's a matter of just training the aides and setting up the infrastructure of the classroom, but you have the expertise already there. And it's not a matter of cost. These people are not more expensive than special education teachers. It's not a matter of cost. It's a matter of having the proper training.
Well, I was saying Dr. Seuss quotes earlier, and we're just about out of time here, but the one that I didn't say, that I'm going to say now, is sometimes the questions are complicated and the answers are simple. What you just said gets right to the core of everything. Really fabulous. I want to thank you for being here. I want to remind everybody, we're probably not going to be here tomorrow because our plan is to go to the MedMaps convention. I'm still waiting to hear about that, so if we're not here tomorrow, it means that we're there, and we're going to come back with a bunch of content for you, but we will be back on Monday for sure. But you can be in touch with us over the weekend, and a lot of exciting things happening next week. So until then, please give your kiddos a hug from me. Bye-bye for now.